The apartment upstairs hasn't had a single visitor in 5 years. So, whose footsteps am I hearing every night? I moved into this apartment at the end of October, when the weather in Portland started to turn cold and damp. The building had that classic American charm: red bricks, creaky wooden stairs, and long hallways lit by pale yellow fluorescent lights. A quiet place to work, or so I thought. I'm a freelance programmer. All I need is strong Wi-Fi and a solid door I can lock. My unit is on the second floor. Directly above it is apartment 3B, occupied by a man named Henry Logan. Roughly 60 years old, lives alone. I've never met him. I only heard from a few neighbors that he's a retired doctor, a bit eccentric, rarely leaves his apartment, doesn't talk to anyone, very private. The kind of man this city is full of. I didn't care. I didn't come here to make friends. I just needed quiet. And it was quiet during the day. But on the very first night, I noticed something strange. Around 1 a.m., as I was typing the last few lines of code before going to bed, I started hearing footsteps from the ceiling. Not too loud, but steady. 1, 2, 3, pause. Then again, as if someone was pacing back and forth in the apartment above. I thought, maybe the guy has insomnia. Not a big deal. Everyone has their quirks. But the footsteps returned every single night, always starting at 1 a.m. and only stopping around 5. And it wasn't just footsteps. Sometimes there was the sound of a chair being dragged, running water, a hand lightly tapping on the wall. I grabbed my phone and searched Reddit. Neighbor doesn't sleep, walks around at night. Is that weird? Someone replied, still better than them standing still all night. I laughed, but something started to feel off. I don't know why, but whenever those footsteps began, I started to feel watched. It wasn't the noise that kept me up. It was the feeling that someone was circling above my head, round and round, for hours. I bought noise-canceling headphones. Didn't help. I tried opening the window, poking my head out, looking up to see if the lights were on upstairs. They were always on. A week later, I couldn't take it anymore. I called building management. Hi, I'm in Unit 2B. I was wondering if I could ask something about the apartment above me. The woman on the phone sounded tired. You mean Mr. Logan? Yes, I just wanted to know, is there any way to limit the noise at night? I think he might be pacing a lot early in the morning. She paused for a moment. He lives alone. His wife passed away a long time ago. I think he has sleep issues, but what? No one's really been inside his place for years. The door is always locked. He doesn't receive visitors. Actually, we're not even sure he really ever goes out. That sentence sent a chill down my spine. I stayed silent. So did she. After a few seconds, she added, I'll make a note, but if you hear anything unusual, call the police. I hung up, went back to my desk. But that night, I didn't sleep, and the footsteps returned, steady, rhythmic, right above my ceiling, starting exactly at 1 a.m. 3 days after the call with building management, I noticed a stain on the ceiling, right above my desk, exactly beneath Mr. Logan's apartment. At first, it was just a pale, murky ring of water about the size of a hand. I figured it was a leaky pipe, but by the 4th day the stain had spread. It was damp, and it smelled faintly metallic, faintly like blood. I stood on a chair and touched it. It was wet and cold. That whole afternoon, I couldn't focus. My eyes kept glancing up at the ceiling as if something might fall straight through. That night, as usual, the footsteps returned. But this time, something was different. They were louder, heavier, like someone wearing heavy boots, walking very slowly, each step thudding deep into my bones. I grabbed my baseball bat, stood quietly beneath the spot on the ceiling, and stared. I don't know why, but I whispered, "Are you up there, Mr. Logan?" No reply, just the footsteps. 1, 2, 3, then stop. Directly above my head, I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, I went upstairs to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B sat at the end of the hallway. The door was a faded green, the numbers rusted metal. The lock was old, the handle worn smooth from years of touch. I knocked 3 times. No response. I pressed my ear to the door. Inside, total silence. No TV, no radio, only a weight in the air. Heavy, still. I stepped back and snapped a photo of the door. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that I had once suspected something. That evening, I told a friend, Jenna, a journalist at a small local paper. She asked, "What's his name?" "Henry Logan." She looked at me for a moment, then opened her laptop. "Hang on. Logan. Henry." A minute later, she turned the screen toward me. It was an old news article from 2018. The headline read, "Dr. Logan resigns amid allegations tied to patient death." I skimmed through it. Neurologist Dr. Henry Logan from Portland General Hospital resigned following the death of a female patient. Family claimed he prescribed the wrong medication. Investigation found no criminal evidence, but the hospital stated he voluntarily stepped down for health reasons. Jenna looked up at me. "You're living directly below a controversial doctor, and he hasn't left that apartment since his resignation?" I swallowed. "No. And no one's been inside that apartment in 5 years." She lowered her voice, almost whispering, "Maybe he's not up there anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if someone hasn't left their home in 5 years, never opens the door, doesn't get groceries, doesn't pick up mail, has no visitors, are they still alive?" I froze, but I hear footsteps every night. She looked at me as if I had just said something no one should ever say out loud. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat beneath the stain on the ceiling in the dark, noise-canceling headphones on, mic activated. I was going to record the footsteps, but at exactly 1 a.m., there was nothing. No footsteps, no dragging chair, no running water, only a soft tapping on the ceiling right above my head. 1 tap, then 2, then 3. The next day, I submitted a formal request to the building management. I didn't write the full reason, just ceiling leak, apartment 3B. 3 days later, a man showed up, tall, wearing dark sunglasses, with an ID badge clipped to his chest. Rick Sanders, building safety officer. Rick held a clipboard in his hand as he knocked on the door of 3B. No one answered. He knocked again, louder, then turned the handle, locked. He turned to me. I was standing just behind him. "Does Mr. Logan ever respond to mail?" "No. I've never even seen him open the door." Rick nodded, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a spare key. He inserted it. Click. The door creaked open. Slowly, a wave of foul air spilled out, a mix of mildew, antiseptic, and something older, something rotting. Rick raised a hand to cover his nose. "You stay here. Don't come in. Let me check first." I nodded. He stepped inside. His footsteps echoed on the old wooden floor. He did a slow sweep. The living room, empty. The kitchen, covered in dust. No signs of life. I peeked in from the hallway. Everything looked frozen in time. A teacup sat on the table, stained, an old radio, stacks of medical journals, a doctor's white coat, yellowing, hung behind the door. Rick called out, "Mr. Logan?" No answer. Finally, he opened the bedroom door. The moment it opened, he froze. Oh my God! I couldn't help it. I ran in. Lying on the bed was a life-sized human figure. No, not a regular mannequin. It was a full-sized human dummy, made of pale rubber, bald-headed, wearing pajamas. Beside it, a faded photograph of Mr. Logan himself, taped to the dummy's face. Near the foot of the bed, a small microphone was connected to a speaker system. Rick stepped back. "This thing is programmed to make footstep sounds?" I looked down. Foam strips lined the floor, connected to a vibrating motor beneath the wood panels. Each night, the apartment had been producing its own footsteps. So he's been gone for a long time? Rick shook his head. "Not necessarily. Maybe he's still here, or maybe someone wants you to think he is." I stepped forward and opened the closet. Inside were stacks of patient records, all female names, some crossed out in red, some with photos attached, and then, tucked between two folders, I saw an old envelope, written in ink, "To the one living below. If you're reading this, I might no longer be here." My hands trembled. I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, the handwriting shaky, almost broken. I can't hear their voices anymore, can't see them in the mirror. But at night, I still hear them standing around me if I haven't left. Cut the power, and look at the ceiling. I looked at Rick. He was afraid of something living with him. Rick didn't answer. He just tightened his grip on the folder. Then he looked straight at me. "You live right under this room, don't you?" I nodded. "Then tonight, don't sleep. I'll shut off power to the entire third floor." That night, I turned off all the lights. I sat alone in the cold dark beneath apartment 3B. No footsteps, no vibrations. Only one thing, a stream of black liquid leaking down from the ceiling, dripping directly onto my hand. Oily, sticky, and smelling like blood. I washed my hand 3 times, but the smell of blood wouldn't go away. It no longer smelled like fresh blood, but something thicker, more aged, like dried blood that had soaked back through again. There couldn't be blood on the ceiling. If it were sewage, the smell would be different. If it was real blood, then up there had to be a body. The next morning, Rick came back. In his hand was an old medical file pulled from the pile of papers inside 3B. "I found this. You might want to see it." I opened it. Patient name, Linda Miles. Age, 28. Treatment location, private practice. Doctor, Jonathan Logan. Last contact date, April 23rd, 5 years ago. I looked at Rick. "Miles? That name sounds familiar." Rick nodded. It was a missing persons case. No body was ever found. And it was strange. The last person to see her was her therapist, also known as Dr. Logan. My chest tightened. "You mean no one really investigated it? Logan was respected, no criminal record, kept to himself, but this file, it has no ending. There's no patient discharged, no note saying she was transferred to another clinic, and Linda's last listed address." I looked at the line. Apartment 3A, that's my apartment. The place I'm living now used to be Linda Miles' last known residence. My heart raced. It felt like the apartment I'd been living in never really belonged to me. Every footstep I'd heard, every night I thought I heard chairs moving. Could it be what I heard was the memory of Linda still echoing? That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned on the kitchen light, opened my laptop and typed Linda Miles plus missing. I found something, an old article, a photo of her, long brown hair, a thin but bright face. One line in the article stood out. Linda was believed to suffer from severe sleep disorder, time distortion, and possible paranoia. Family reported she often spoke of the person on the ceiling and the eyes in the mirror. I remembered Logan's letter. Can't see them in the mirror? Cut the power. Then look at the ceiling. I decided to do something crazy. I grabbed a chair, pointed a flashlight at the large vent near the ceiling, the one where the leak had come through. I opened it with a screwdriver. My flashlight cut into the musty, dark space. There was something in there. I pulled it out. It was a leather-bound journal, old, damp, but the handwriting inside was still intact. The first page written in a woman's hand. Linda Miles, Treatment Journal. The second page filled with words scratched out in desperation. I know they don't believe me, but I see her every night, standing behind Dr. Logan. It's not his wife. It's not someone alive. I see them in the mirror when he forces me to look into his eyes. I see something that isn't human. If I disappear, maybe I never left at all. I shivered, not because I was afraid of ghosts, but because if Linda never left, then she might still be here. And if Logan had programmed the footsteps just so someone would think he was still alive, then who or what was truly still alive in that apartment above me? I didn't tell Rick. I couldn't. He'd lived here far too long, and maybe he already knew. I brought Linda's journal back home, tossed and turned all night. I read every line, every shaky, jagged word. They put me in the mirror room, a place with no windows, no clocks. I don't know if it's day or night, only the knock, 3 times every morning. I tried screaming, but the walls are too thick. She spoke of a room that wasn't on the building plans. I pulled up the emergency floor map again. There was something strange. Apartment 3B, where Logan lived. It looked bigger than it should be. If you measured the square footage, it was about 8 meters larger than the physical space. 8 meters, enough for a small room, a room with no windows, no clocks, no sound. I waited until midnight, opened my door into the hallway. Everything was still. I used the spare key, the one Rick had given me before for cleaning. I unlocked 3B again. I stepped inside. Everything was the same. Dust thick on the chairs. The wall clock stuck at 3:17. That faint antiseptic smell still lingering. I turned on my flashlight, walked to the far wall of the living room. A wall with no door, but according to the blueprint, there should be a hallway there. I tapped it. Hollow. I shined my light closer, found a faint line, a seam in the wall, like something was cut and repainted hastily. I pressed harder. Nothing. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, started prying at the drywall. It took nearly 30 minutes. Then, click, a piece of the wall popped loose. Behind it was a gray metal door, no handle, no label. I pressed my ear to it. Silence. I leaned in with my shoulder. Pushed. The door creaked open with a long, painful screech. Inside was a small pitch-black room. Soundproofed walls, no windows, no lights. Just one chair, one desk, and a large mirror mounted on the wall. The kind you'd see in an interrogation room. And on the floor, An old cassette recorder, the power light still blinking red. I sat down, pressed play. A woman's voice came through, hoarse, nearly breaking. "My name is Linda Miles. If anyone finds this, please believe me. I'm not insane. He wasn't treating me. He was experimenting on me. He said, if you can live inside a hallucination, then you can live without memory." Then he isolated me, took away the lights, took away clocks, erased the calendar. I lost all sense of time. I dreamed of things I had never seen. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself anymore. I stopped the tape. My heart was pounding. The mirror. I turned to the wall behind me, shined the flashlight on the mirror. Something was off. It didn't reflect. Instead, it was one-way glass. I brought the flashlight closer. Behind the glass was another chamber, a tiny compartment, just big enough for one person to sit. No light. And inside, I saw a figure. A woman, long hair, thin frame, sitting completely still, staring back at me, but with eyes that no longer felt alive. I stumbled back. The door behind me slammed shut. I was locked in. Soundproofed walls, no cell signal. No one knew I was here, only me, a mirror, and a pair of eyes that refused to blink from the other side. I pounded on the door, yelled. Nothing but dead echoes bouncing off the thick walls. There was no handle on the inside, just the mirror, or rather the one-way glass, with the woman sitting silently behind it. She didn't move, didn't blink, like a living statue. I shined my flashlight toward her. No reaction. I shouted, "Linda, can you hear me?" No answer. I turned around, searching everywhere, the floor, the door frame, the padded walls. And then my flashlight stopped on something. Under the table, beneath the old tape recorder, was a USB stick, taped with black electrical tape. I pulled it out. I still had my small laptop in my bag. The battery was charged. I plugged it in. Only one file appeared. Patient Logan LM. Session 38.move. I opened it. The video loaded, a room almost identical to the one I was in. A man in a white coat, taking notes. And across from him was Linda, but different from the woman behind the glass. This Linda was talking, smiling, responding normally. Logan's voice filled the room. "Linda, today we'll attempt time separation exercise number 3. I'll ask you to guess what day it is, and then ask again in 1 hour to see if the memory holds." Linda smiled softly. "I'm betting it's Friday, and I'll remember." The video jumped. New angle. Linda now had noticeable hair loss. Her eyes dull, distant. I'm not sure. Maybe Wednesday or the 10th. Logan's tone had changed. Colder. Excellent. The brain is beginning to respond as expected. The video ended abruptly. I sat frozen. What I just saw wasn't therapy. It was memory manipulation, intentional erasure, a calculated experiment. I turned back toward the mirror. Linda, was still sitting there, but this time I saw a single tear roll down her cheek. She had heard it. I scanned the floor, found a small switch tucked beneath the tiles, dusty, old. I flipped it. Click. The glass shifted slightly to the side. A hidden door slid open. I stepped through. Linda didn't react. I knelt beside her. "My name is Marcus. I found your journal." She lifted her head, her eyes cloudy, slow. Very softly she asked, "Am I still me?" I nodded. "Yes, and I'm going to help you get out of here." What followed was chaos. I called the police, called Rick, who panicked when he saw Linda alive. He'd believed she'd died after being transferred years ago. Linda was taken to a recovery facility. The case hit the news. Logan was issued a federal warrant for unlawful confinement and unethical experimentation. He vanished. No one ever found him. Weeks later, I visited Linda at the facility. She didn't say much, but for the first time, I saw her drawing a simple sketch, a mirror, and inside, a reflection of herself, smiling. I asked, "What are you drawing?" She answered, "A place where I can finally recognize myself." Some truths don't scream, they whisper, through walls, through mirrors, through silence, and sometimes justice doesn't shout. It waits for someone who dares to listen. Just one final thought. Some people don't disappear because they're gone. They disappear because no one took the time to look. In a world so loud, where truth is often buried beneath noise and neglect, sometimes it only takes one person, someone quiet enough to listen, patient enough to see beyond a clouded gaze. And sometimes rescue begins with a simple question. Are you still you? If this story moves something in you, whether it's about loneliness, hope, or the forgotten truths that beg to be heard, leave a comment below. Like this video if you believe the truth matters. Share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And don't forget to subscribe, because here we tell stories where secrets, emotions, and humanity collide in every breath. See you next time on the other side of the mirror.